Hello, Blue Review has returned. I'm sure you've all been waiting with bated breath. I'm going to talk about two Blu-rays that I recently acquired. One a little while ago in an auction, and well, I bid for it. The one of those make the offers kind of things. And I made an offer and it's kind of low, but the guy took it. And the other one was half off at Mondo Macabro, and that one took a while to get to me, but I received it earlier today, and I perused it and its bonus features. So let me talk about the first one first. I'm watching the Blu-ray special features, and you'll probably recognize this film. You've probably seen it a million times, or hopefully you've seen it. The Day the Earth Stood Still. Now, ooh, look at that cool pattern with the light glare. So, and that special feature I have playing is the theremin performance of the soundtrack. Okay, so this says the original sci-fi masterpiece. Now, the reason it says the original is because when the time that this Blu-ray came out, it was released as a tie-in with the remake of Day the Earth Stood Still with Keanu Reeves. Now, I don't want to hate on Keanu Reeves because, I think he's a pretty cool guy overall. I don't like all of his performances. I think some are kind of rough. But that said, I have to say that he's done a few things I like, and but I am not bothered with this remake because general principle. I don't hate all remakes, but my official policy is that I'm not real crazy over the glut of genre remakes in the last few years of films that really needed to get more attention the first time around, or then need more attention now, I guess, rather than just Hollywood remaking them and trying to improve on them, as a few directors occasionally will say in their unguarded moments. Don't name any names. But Day the Earth Stood Still, of course, was a classic. I mean, it's been a classic since 1951 when it was released. So we're talking like, wow, 70 years next year will be its anniversary, 70th anniversary in 2021 of this great movie. And it has aged super well. This thing is, you probably know the plot, you might not know the plot. What the hell? Basically, a flying saucer comes down in Washington, and the guy gets out, and he's wearing a helmet, obscuring his features. He's humanoid, and the army and all the military and the cops and everybody are on guard and high alert. And so the guy brings out a little device, little learning device from his culture. And of course, they think it's a weapon. They shoot him. They break the weapon. He recovers, but um, they took him to Walter Reed Hospital after that, and they didn't want to let him go. And one of the cool things that happens early in the film is when he is shot and falls down for a bit. His robot Gort comes out. Gort is a really cool creation. I mean, it's a guy in a rubber suit, but it's this is a black and white film, and they use black and white to its utmost advantage in this, and that's helped it to age really well. Gort is he does have a silvery metallic sheen about him, and the fact he moves, if he was really that metallic, he wouldn't move as not that he's dancing or anything, but I mean he moves somewhat fluidly, albeit slowly, and that fluidity is from the fact that the suit is soft, but it looks like metal the way it's photographed, so it's pretty dang cool. Anyway, he zaps the guns and the tanks, a few of them, out of the military's hands, and then retreats back into the ship at orders of the visitor, whose name is Klaatu. So Klaatu is once his helmet is gone, he is Michael Rennie, and the actor plays him, and he has a kind of proto David Bowie-ish kind of vibe to him. He's British, and he's very into how do I put it? He's just very elegant, and he kind of is an archetypal kind of wise being from another world, from an advanced civilization. And I do think that The Man Who Fell to Earth took some cues, maybe not the book, but the movie with Bowie took some cues from from Man Who Fell to Earth, the movie, took some cues from The Day the Earth Stood Still, the movie. So these long titles, man. Okay, so anyway, yeah, it's an incredible film. It's one of my favorite science fiction films, and I was going to say it's aged really well for a lot of reasons. First of all, its message is still the same. You know, we're going to blow ourselves to kingdom come with our petty squabbles, as he puts it. I mean, you know, it's unsparing in its disdain for the Cold War and everything that was going on post World War II, and tensions throughout the world. And you know, Klaatu just dismisses this as absurd. He's like, my message is more important than to give to one nation. You know, I do not wish to be involved in your petty squabbles. Um, you know, but he's a cool guy. He befriends the kid, and the kid's not obnoxious. He's a little cutesy, but he's kind of like a 50s kid. Oh, swell, you know, gee willikers kind of kid, but they don't beat you over the head with it, thank God. It's just really a little more subdued. He becomes friends with Klaatu. Klaatu goes under the name Mr. Carpenter, which allegedly is a play on that he's a Christ-like figure come to warn the earth of its potential destruction. And of course, he's shot in the side like Christ was pierced with the spear of destiny. He dies and he rises from the grave because death isn't quite the same on his world. You know, there's a few metaphors there, but it's not heavy-handed like, say, the ones that are in what's that movie called? Man of Steel by Zack Snyder. That's like stuffed with Christ analogies, and it's an overstuffed movie anyway. And not a fan, me personally, not a fan. So it's not quite to that level, you know. There's a bit of that imagery also in Superman Returns, prior film by Bryan Singer, which was from the Christopher Reeve Superman film's continuity. But of course, Man of Steel was the reimagining. So, and anyway, I'm glad I stayed away from the reimagining of Day the Earth Stood Still, because it's superfluous. This is a timeless classic. Yeah, the message is there. It's relevant today with this neo-Cold War going on, and people are just so territorial and tribalistic, and we could still blow ourselves to kingdom come. Of course, in this film, they're worried that humans are going to develop the rockets further, go into outer space, and bring the nuclear weaponry with them into outer space. And Klaatu knows that nuclear power can be used for something other than just, you know, weaponry and etc. Which, wow, what a concept of humans, though, at that time. You know, considering their only major deployment of it at that time was to destroy 100,000 people who were going to surrender anyway. So Klaatu is kind of a herald of this race that's saying, you're not welcome out here in the stars because you're not evolved enough. And if you get the technology, you're going to try to destroy us and we're going to burn you to a fucking ash. So, and he's real friendly about this, but that is the bottom line. The other thing that's held up so well is the visuals and the effects, and really because of the minimalism. Um, I think the science fiction films from the past that we'll say, of course, way pre CGI, but we'll say way Star Wars or even way 2000, pre Star Wars, pre 2001: A Space Odyssey, which kind of really revolutionized modern special effects in science fiction, and then Star Wars kind of took that to another standard, and then everyone was giving out bigger budgets in Hollywood to do science fiction movies, and they started really looking incredible, doing complex stuff. However, in the past, when they tried to do this complex material and designs, unless they had good production design and good cinematography, a good eye for these things, it was a disaster. I mean, this is minimalist and black and white, like I said. So, the rays are minimalist. It's just like a beam. It's just a plain white beam that just vaporizes. There's no big explosions. There's no choo-choo laser beam fights or anything. And it's all the better for it. It stands up so much better. The costumes are very stark. Gort and Klaatu in his suit both look very stark. And I would say it obviously had a huge influence on Forbidden Planet. Now, Forbidden Planet, a few years later, I believe 1956, was the next gold standard. And that's the one that kind of was the archetypal film that dealt with a crew of spacemen in the future exploring alien planets. And a lot of the concepts from Forbidden Planet came from A.E. Van Vogt, the golden age of science fiction writer, and specifically his story Black Destroyer, which he has rarely ever been credited properly for his influence on that film. Black Destroyer is, to me, a phenomenal early science fiction story, but Van Vogt was writing these stories in the 30s of these, future civilizations where, the technology was such that, and a lot of them were based from Earth. Well, that was the idea, is that Earth had advanced and we had conquered the stars, so to speak, and we were going and exploring other civilizations. And of course, the Forbidden Planet took that to a visual level of excellence and craftsmanship that had not been seen before in film, and brought those ideas to life. It wasn't as minimalist as Day the Earth Stood Still. It was more ambitious, but I think maybe partially in part because of the success of Day the Earth Stood Still, they were willing to do a science fiction film that was intelligent and well crafted, and not just the giant monsters mutated by radiation kind of things. And those films have their place. I mean, a lot of them are very entertaining. Some of them are unintentionally hilarious, and then some, like Them with the giant ants, is actually highly effective to me anyway, as a kind of sci-fi horror. So it just depends on the direction and the how the director brings together these various elements to create images that are not going to date so poorly because they're not over ambitious. They're not like trying too hard to imagine the future as being so different that it loses the universality to it. So, pardon the pun there, possibly. A great film that's an example of this that came 10 years after Forbidden Planet is Mario Bava's Planet of the Vampires. In this case, instead of the stark, black and white and the silver suits, the characters wear these kind of black leather or maybe vinyl suits with gold trimming, and the spaceship is like cobalt blue, and there is a lot of metallic stuff going on, and it's very minimalist. There's not much going on. There's not many chairs where the people are sitting. It looks like it looks kind of like they are in a sound stage, which I guess they probably were, but it's cool. It's more like a huge room that's like their nerve center of how they're running the ship, and the effects are great. I mean, it really, they do have laser beams, and like in Forbidden Planet, they're not 100% convincing like later laser guns were in Star Wars or Battlestar Galactica or etc. But they don't look bad. They don't look any worse than the early CGI work that was coming out in like the 1990s. So it all kind of evens out. Anyway, I like that strain. I think that stuff holds up. And as much as it was a thoughtful and well acted, well written series and well meaning, I believe the original Star Trek is dated really poorly visually. Not great production design. Some of the designs themselves are great, but not great cinematography. Not exploiting um, the talents available behind the camera to make this world more convincing. It all looked kind of plastic and rubbery and not very plausible, and it's dated badly because it's supposed to be super futuristic, and it just, I don't know. And you remember a few years back, they did a set of Star Trek with redoing the effects digitally and enhancing them. I saw a little of it. I mean, it was nice. I mean, it smoothed out some of the rough edges. But again, it's like, why go back and refilm this stuff 40 years later, when you have works that have stood the test of time? And it's so interesting because Star Trek: The Motion Picture came out post Star Wars, so they had a huge budget, and it looks beautiful. It's breathtaking, and irony of ironies, it was directed by Robert Wise, who directed Day the Earth Stood Still. So that's my sci-fi film rant for the day. Um, this Blu-ray has a ton of extras. It has documentaries. It has a whole bunch of features on the theremin, which was the lead instrument on the soundtrack. Um, it's got a trailer. It's got interviews. It's got another short documentary made by Robert Wise, and it's just kind of loaded with stuff. Some of the stuff was on the Fox Studio Classics DVD, and then some of it is exclusive to the Blu-ray. The theremin material is all exclusive to the Blu-ray. So, as I understand it, this Blu-ray is out of print. Um, it's hard to get a hold of at a decent price. So I kind of lucked out. I knew it was kind of do or die, and I made this guy an offer, and I did not think he was going to settle for an amount that small, and I didn't expect him to. It's the whole part of the whole thing of eBay. It's kind of going back and forth, which can be really fun, or it can be really frustrating, depending. Um, but he did, and now it's proudly in my library forever. One of my favorites. So we'll talk about one more film, and then I'm going to split. Um, this one came today, the Mondo Macabro Perversion Story. Can you see that? Look at that horrible glare from the television. There, that's better. With Marissa Mell on the cover. This is a painting from one of the posters. A film by Lucio Fulci. And you guys already know how much I love Lucio Fulci and think he's like a master of cinema, and especially horror cinema, genre cinema. Um, anyway, this movie was originally called Una Sull'altra and came out in 1969, and that translates as One on Top of the Other, which a lot of the prints used. I prefer that title, but they tried to make a glitzier, sleazier sounding title, Perversion Story, in some markets. And, on home video, official home video, I should say, because it floated around as a bootleg for as a popular bootleg for many years, courtesy of like European trash cinema and places like that. But um, they chose to go with this for the DVD release, which was by Severin, which had an extra disc, had soundtrack, which is an incredible jazz soundtrack by Riz Ortolani, who's one of my favorite composers for films. I mean, he did Cannibal Holocaust, he did Castle of Blood, he did Mondo Cane, and this one is just almost to the league of some of that stuff. It's very jazzy. There are a lot of saxophone stuff. Anyway, the Blu-ray does not have the extra soundtrack, but that's okay. It's remastered and it's got some new extras, and it has like a interview with Jean Sorel, co-star, and he's rather aged now, and he's sharp as a tack, and he shares a lot of really cool anecdotes. I enjoyed his interview. It was about a half hour long, and he just seems like a really cool guy. He's lived the life that I guess a lot of guys used to dream about. Just this jet set life. Traveling the world, meeting and being involved with beautiful women, and just this whole kind of Euro jet set mindset. And it's like he talks about it a good bit. He gets pretty philosophical about it and says, this was a time in my life when I was free. I was truly free, and not every role I took was, the greatest, but if I liked it, I would do it. If I wanted to do it, I would do it. And I'm like, wow, okay, and that's probably why he appears in so many. He appears in art house movies, like notably Belle de Jour. But then he's in some of the Carol Baker, Roberto Lindsay giallos. He's in this one. He's in the subsequent Lizard and Woman's Skin by Fulci. A couple of the cast members of this turn up in that. This is the first of Fulci's giallos, and I consider what I consider a loose trilogy of giallos, one on top of the other, Lizard in a Woman's Skin, and Don't Torture a Duckling, which is kind of the terminal document of that phase of Fulci's career. So one on top of the other is basically like a, dual role kind of thing. It's a little Vertigo influenced, and takes place in San Francisco and was shot in San Francisco, largely on location there. And took advantage of the locales really well. Mind you, this is 1969, so they go to like a go-go club, an erotic dancing club, and there are girls sitting in swings, scantily clad with crazy paintings and tattoos of psychedelic shapes and images. Just everything you could ever want out of a 60s film. And Marissa Mell has a striptease number in her outfit, and just the whole imagery is incredible. I will probably, if I can find a really really good still of it, I will probably make it the thumbnail of this video. This is really a treat. Anyway, she plays Jean Sorel's wife, who's like this long-suffering asthmatic, and she dies, and he gets this mysterious large insurance policy, and he works in a clinic. He's a doctor himself, and his brother's a doctor, and so there's two brothers. There's George and there's Henry, and they're the de Maurier brothers, and they have this de Maurier. They're not quite de Maurier like Rebecca, but they have this clinic they inherited from their dad, and they're not, apparently George is running it as not a very great doctor, but he's always trying to do hype, trying to court rich people by making promises of technological advancements that he really can't back up, mainly heart transplants. His brother seems a little resentful of his attitude, but overall Henry seems like a good supporting brother. But we find out differently towards the end. We also find Marissa's duplicate, a character named Monica Weston, who is, like I said, she's a stripper and an exotic dancer in the psychedelic clubs. And so she's a dead ringer for his dead wife. And it's pretty wild because, it's presented as totally a separate character. Um, but there are lots of things that make you wonder. Like a lot of Giallos, it has a very convoluted plot. Like a lot of Giallos, it explains the convoluted plot in the last, 5 minutes. So if you're cool with those conventions, then it's a no-brainer. I mean, you'll like it a lot. You'll probably love it. Um, if those kind of things are annoying to you or hackneyed, then well, I'm going to press a button here on these features. Um, if you think that stuff's hackneyed, you probably will be scratching your head or rolling your eyes. But I think if you're scratching your head and rolling your eyes to a Fulci movie, you probably are not going to be watching my videos anyway. So, it's probably a foregone conclusion here. Um, the print is excellent. It has it in Italian and English and with English subtitles. It's the longest print. It has, it's totally uncut. And it's really a good example of Fulci's early commercial filmmaking that was actually kind of popular in America briefly, and even though he wasn't exactly a household name, but also has a lot of experimental shots and um, interesting angles, just very well composed, like most of his movies are. But it was cool to see him doing this kind of jagged kind of experimentation with the frame and the camera early on when he had been doing pretty conventional setups with his comedies and with that great spaghetti western Massacre Time he did in 1966 with Franco Nero. So I recommend this one. It has, of course, a twist ending, and it's notable as it beats you over the head with in the trailers. It's notable as being the first film ever to be shot in the authentic um, gas chamber of San Quentin prison. And that's part of what the plot hinges on, this kind of like 11th hour, can we save George de Maurier from being executed for killing his wife, who may or may not even be dead. So, anyway, that's my report for today. Thanks for listening, and just highly recommended. Two fun films. I'm glad I finally have them, and I'm glad they're in my library. So hopefully they'll be in yours one day. Anyway, I'll be back soon with more stuff. I think I made a brief arbitrary what did I call it? Arbitrary interlude video. I made a second one, but I'm going to release this first. I may not even release that one. So if I don't release it, I'll go ahead and say it here. My next one of my next blue reviews is going to be the one I was alluding to, a disc I've been waiting for, and hopefully it's not lost in the mail. But it's I got an inexpensive pre-order copy of the New Mutants, so that should be interesting. But that one I'm going to talk at length about, and for a variety of reasons, it'll probably be a lengthy video, a little more expansive than some I've done, with the exception possibly of the uh, Twin Flames videos. If you put those two together, that's kind of a similar kind of idea. But this, if I can, remember to exhale once in a while, then I might be able to make it through an hour on the New Mutants. And basically, I'm going to talk about the entire extended X-Men cinematic universe that Fox and Marvel put together from year 2000 to 2020, and then this is it, the end of it. New Mutants is the swan song. So I've seen all the movies, and I'm going to talk about all the movies and kind of put them in context, and the TV series that are in the same universe too. So anyway, take care. Thank you. Appreciate it watching.